Welcome back to Dr. Noah's YouTube update, and just kind of review the scientific literature. This came out last week. Long exposure to microwave radiation provokes cancer growth, evidence from radars and mobile communication systems. That means cell phones. And so that was published in a peer-reviewed article here in Experimental Oncology, and that was July 2011. And you know, we've talked about that. There's an ongoing type of concern is that when you put a cell phone up to your head, microwave radiation's going in. So just do this little experiment, you know. Think about putting your head in a microwave, turning it on. What do you think that's going to do to your brain? Not good. And little dogs and actually some babies have actually been killed by disturbed people that put, you know, their animal and their child into a microwave, and it's obviously not good. So being exposed to this is a big concern in terms of this electromagnetic energy. And now it's difficult because we're all constantly being bombarded, but you know, it's just more and more concern in terms of this type of lifestyle, this type of future type of experience has consequences. And we've talked about the 240% increase, what's called unilateral acoustic neuromas, which are just for certain types of brain tumors that have just exploded because that's where people put up their cell phone. And we've talked a little bit before about trying to keep it away, try to text more. There's little devices that can have some benefit there, so those are some choices that you can do. But you know, cell phones. What was interesting, as this was published that same day, the industry, which is, you know, an info commercial, they came out and stated, and this is from the telecommunication, you know, Verizon and AT&T, had their so-called scientists say that there's no problem whatsoever with this. It's completely safe. And so it's the really disturbing type of thing that we've come to, is that, you know, people are bought out, and basically that has to be you know, concern of yours in terms of making a decision. Now maybe you'll choose that, you know, you believe those other scientists, fine, but just, you know, where the money comes from becomes a big factor like that. Well, if that wasn't bad enough, right here in Kaiser, in pediatrics, they had another study showing asthma linked to electromagnetic field exposure. So this goes beyond, once again, just brain tumors, is that these type of, you know, electromagnetic forces, and I give my patients a little device you can either, hopefully a doctor, you can buy for a little over $100, and you just go around. It just tells you the forces. So this is the device that I use in my office and give my patients. It's what's called a tri-field meter, and it actually measures the amount of electromagnetic forces here. And we might be able to see it. This one is an analog scale. They have this in digital. And let's see if we can. Yeah, I don't know if you can take a picture up here, but now the needle has kind of spiked because that fluorescent bulb, and these are full spectrum lights, still are emitting high levels. But as you come down, the needle here has dropped down. So that's that inverse square law. So by just knowing and moving things away, I've had patients, in fact, Cindy and Don and I have a good friend, John, who his bed was very close to a smart meter, and it was, once again, causing an increase in terms of these electromagnetic forces, which can disturb and definitely help hurt you in the long run. So that's a little handy little device, a little gadget. Now the good thing about most of these forces that we talk, or the electromagnetic forces, it's called the inverse square law. The further away from your body, the less of an impact you have. So yeah, so carrying your cell phone away from your body is good. Of course, your hand's exposed, but those are just principles. And same as with the light here in computers, the further you're away from them, the less the exposure. And so there's growing evidence is that these electromagnetic forces, once again around us, have very serious health consequences on our health and well-being. In this study here in a Journal of Sexual Medicine, August 2000, showing that weight loss has lots of benefits, not in terms of just helping prevent cancer. We've talked about when you're overweight and obese, you're 52% more likely to have cancers, all kinds of cancers. Of course, we know it helps increase, but it promotes type 2 diabetes. It causes musculoskeletal problems. Well, in this study, and this is especially for men are sometimes not motivated by any heart attacks. This study showed that erectile dysfunction or sexual performance was definitely an impact in terms of the individual. The bigger and fatter that you are, you have more problems in terms of being, you know, a healthy man and providing, you know, pleasure with sexual satisfaction there. And so that's what this study showed. Here's that just with it, you know, just cutting back your calories, losing weight had a dramatic impact on your sexual function. This is a little disturbing, is that the new generation is really getting into smoking now. For probably the last decade and a half, there's been a steady decline overall. California definitely a lot more, in terms of smoking. And unfortunately, the tobacco industry has, for probably the last 50 or 60 years, really focused on teenagers because they're vulnerable. They want to be different, mavericks, rebels, all kinds of things. So anything that's bad, they probably want to do. And if they can hook them early on, then they have a lifetime customer because they're addicted to it. And that's what this Centers for Disease Control is showing, that there's been a steady increase, which is still pretty alarming, that teenagers in 1991, 67.2% were doing some type of casual smoking of cigarettes, which to me was kind of, I thought it would be a lot less, but even now. And now in 2009, it's actually 79.4%. So I mean, it's actually going up. So, but that's maybe a little distorted because living in California, there definitely has been a decrease. I mean, a lot more strict versus the other parts of the country, if not the world. I mean, I'm always disturbed going to other places and thinking, yeah, you're not supposed to smoke here, in the restaurant and everything like that. And so that's kind of, interesting. Another study showing that eating healthy, because of, the quality of food, is more expensive. They stated that it costs about $380 per year to eat more healthy foods, and that's like wholesome foods or natural foods, a little bit of organic foods. What they didn't go into, and this is the kind of the hidden thing that other things have, is the subsidies. Most corporate type of big manufacturing type of farmers are subsidized. They're actually paid, like corn. They're actually paid because to actually have corn less in terms of what they sell for, they're subsidized through our tax dollars so that we get cheap corn, because cheap corn feeds cattle, it's made into ethanol, other types of factors, and so our tax dollars are really hiding the true cost of all this crappy food out there. All this crappy food, especially corn, is all based on that. So that I had a little exception of that, and I wrote a little statement in the comments on like that. And there's just another study showing that hospitals, fail to support breast milk. This was another Center for Disease Control. We talked about how breastfeeding is really, the perfect food. Babies and mothers live, are bonding, have healthier type of lifestyle, live more healthy, less hospitalization, less type of trauma, because breast milk is the perfect food like that. And there's supposed to be a trend away from the so-called, 21st century, type of, mother trying to use these special formulas that, yeah, maybe, there are some women that can't breastfeed, but, overall, that is not a healthy thing to do. And so breastfeeding is really critical. And once again, minus points to hospitals, because that's unfortunate that they're, once again, motivated by money. And so different types of formula companies come in and provide different types of programs and extra equipment and this and that. And so no one wants to basically, bite the hand that feeds you. And so unfortunately, instead of being the first priority for a hospital is your health and well-being, it's usually the bottom line. So we'll talk to you a little later. Thanks.